Jenna Walker had always imagined that when her wedding day finally came, it would be everything she dreamed of, a day filled with excitement, joy, and the promise of a bright future with the man she was about to marry. She had always been the practical kind of person, someone who made decisions based on logic rather than emotions. Her life had always followed a certain plan. First came college, then a good job, and soon enough, a nice home in the suburbs. Ethan, her fiancé, had been a part of that plan for as long as Jenna could remember. They had met in college, and from the moment they started dating, everything had fallen into place. Ethan was kind, dependable, and everything she thought she needed in a partner. He worked in a stable job, had a calm demeanor, and shared the same goals she had for the future. They had been together for 4 years, and their relationship had grown steady and predictable. Jenna had always appreciated Ethan's steadiness, his ability to offer her the comfort and security she thought was important in life. He was, in many ways, the perfect man. But there was a part of Jenna that felt restless. Deep down, she couldn't deny that something was missing. There was no real excitement in her life anymore. No spark, no passion. It was as if the relationship had become routine. She had convinced herself that maybe this was what love was supposed to look like. Steady, predictable, and safe. But in her heart, Jenna wondered if this was enough. Was love really just about finding someone to share a comfortable life with? Was this the life she wanted to live, forever? It was only when Jenna returned to Willow Creek, her small hometown, for the wedding preparations that she began to question everything. Jenna's parents had moved to the city when she was younger, but she had spent many summers in Willow Creek, where her aunt and uncle still lived. It was a peaceful, sleepy town, where everyone knew everyone's business, and life moved at a much slower pace. It was the kind of place where people didn't rush, where they stopped to chat with neighbors, and where nothing much ever changed. Jenna had always loved it there, and even though she hadn't spent much time there since moving to the city, there was something about Willow Creek that made her feel at home. On one of her visits to the town during the final stages of her wedding planning, Jenna decided to stop by the local diner for a cup of coffee. It had been years since she'd been to the diner, but it still looked exactly the same old, cozy, with checkered floors and bright yellow walls. As she sat down at the counter, Jenna couldn't help but feel nostalgic. The smell of fresh coffee and the sound of soft country music playing in the background brought back memories of long summer afternoons spent with her cousins, talking about nothing and everything. But on this particular day, as she looked around the diner, something else caught her attention. A man sitting at the far corner of the room had turned his head slightly, and their eyes met. Jenna's heart skipped a beat. There was something in the way he looked at her, something that made her feel like she had been seen in a way no one had ever seen her before. He wasn't like the other men in the diner. He was different, rugged, with a weathered face that spoke of hard work and long days spent outdoors. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his denim jacket looked like it had seen better days. But it was his eyes, deep and intense, that seemed to draw her in. Jenna quickly looked away, feeling an unfamiliar flutter in her chest. She didn't know what it was, but there was something magnetic about him. She tried to focus on her coffee, but she couldn't stop thinking about the man. Who was he? Why had he looked at her like that? It was as if he knew something about her that no one else did. She told herself it was just a passing moment, something that would fade away. After all, she was engaged to Ethan, and there was no reason to think about another man, especially not someone who seemed so mysterious. But fate had a funny way of turning moments like this into something more. Just as Jenna was about to leave the diner, the man stood up and walked toward her. Her breath caught in her throat as he came closer, his boots tapping on the floor. He smiled at her. A small, knowing smile that made her heart race. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice deep and steady. Jenna hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to say. She wasn't used to strangers approaching her like this. but there was something about him that made her feel oddly comfortable. "Sure," she said, surprising herself. He took a seat next to her, and they exchanged pleasantries. His name was Jake Carter, and he was a cowboy, a rancher who had recently moved back to Willow Creek after living in the city for a few years. He had grown up on a ranch just outside of town, but after college, he had left to explore other opportunities. Now, he was back, trying to rebuild his life and find a sense of purpose again. As they talked, Jenna found herself drawn to him in a way that she hadn't expected. Jake was different from the men she was used to. He was rough around the edges but kind in a way that made her feel seen. He wasn't trying to impress her with fancy words or flashy stories. Instead, he simply spoke from the heart. His stories of life on the ranch, the long hours spent working with animals, and the quiet nights under the stars made her feel a sense of calm she hadn't realized she was missing. As the conversation continued, Jenna found herself laughing more than she had in a long time. She was surprised at how easy it was to talk to him, how comfortable she felt in his presence. It wasn't the kind of connection she had with Ethan, the kind built on years of friendship and shared goals. This was something different, something electric, something that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. When the conversation finally came to an end, and Jake stood to leave, Jenna felt a strange emptiness settle over her. It was as if the moment had slipped away too quickly, and she wasn't ready for it to be over. As he walked out of the diner, their eyes met one last time, and Jenna couldn't help but wonder if she'd ever see him again. She shook her head, trying to push the thought away. She was getting married in just a few weeks, and there was no room for distractions, especially not ones like this. But as she left the diner and walked to her car, the image of Jake's intense eyes stayed with her. She couldn't stop thinking about him, and for the first time in a long while, Jenna wondered if she was ready to face the truth about her life and the choices she had made. The days leading up to Jenna's wedding seemed to rush by in a blur. She found herself moving through the motions, ticking off the tasks on her checklist as if everything were just a series of to-dos. The invitations had been sent, the dress was ready, and the venue had been decorated. Her family and friends were all excited, and the town of Willow Creek had been buzzing with the news that Jenna, the girl who grew up there, was getting married. It should have been the happiest time of her life, but instead, Jenna felt a growing sense of unease. Every time she looked at Ethan, her fiancé, she smiled. But it wasn't a smile that reached her eyes. Ethan was kind, dependable, and exactly the kind of man her parents had always wanted her to marry. He was a successful businessman, well-liked in their community, and he had everything that made him a solid choice for a life partner. There was no doubt that he cared for Jenna deeply and that he would do anything for her. And yet, something was missing. Jenna couldn't put her finger on it, but she knew she wasn't feeling the excitement she had expected. It was the night before the wedding, when Jenna received a message that would change everything. She had been at her parents' house, finishing some last-minute preparations, when she saw a text come through on her phone. It was from Jake, the man she had met at the diner. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the message. "I know this might be crazy, but I can't stop thinking about you, Jenna. I think you deserve to feel more than just comfortable. You deserve to feel something real. If you're not sure about what you're about to do tomorrow, just know that I'll be here." At first, Jenna didn't know how to respond. She hadn't heard from Jake since their chance meeting in the diner. She had thought about him often since then, but she had pushed the thoughts aside, convincing herself that it was just a fleeting attraction. She was getting married, after all. But as she read his message again, Jenna felt something stir deep within her. She couldn't deny that Jake's words resonated with her. He was right. She had spent so much time trying to fit into a mold of what society expected her life to look like. But with Ethan, it felt like she was just going through the motions. She wondered if she had simply settled, choosing comfort and security over the excitement and passion she had once dreamed of. And in that moment, Jenna realized She hadn't felt truly alive in a long time. After a long moment of hesitation, Jenna finally decided to respond. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure of what to say. She typed, then deleted, then typed again. She wanted to keep it simple, but the words felt heavy. Finally, she sent a short reply. I don't know what to say, but I'm thinking about what you said. Tomorrow is a big day, and I need some time to think. The moment she sent the message, Jenna felt a wave of guilt wash over her. She had just reached out to another man, and here she was, just hours away from marrying Ethan. She felt as though she was betraying him, even though she hadn't done anything physical. The emotional turmoil was just as real. She tried to push the thoughts away and focus on what was coming the next day. That night, she barely slept. Her mind raced with thoughts of Jake, the message he had sent, and the growing sense of doubt that she had been pushing aside for months. She kept thinking about how comfortable her life with Ethan was, but at the same time, she knew something was missing. And Jake, he had made her feel something that had been absent from her life for so long. She could still remember the way he had looked at her in the diner, as if she was the only person in the room. It was a look that had made her heart race, something she hadn't experienced in a long time. The next morning, as Jenna got ready for her wedding, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was happening too fast. The wedding dress, the flowers, the cake, it all felt like a carefully orchestrated performance, a show that everyone was watching. She was about to marry Ethan, and yet she was filled with a sense of dread. Was this really what she wanted? Or was she simply going along with what was expected of her? Ethan was already at the church, preparing for the ceremony. Jenna's family and friends were gathered, excited for the big day. Her mother was beaming with pride, and her father kept talking about how proud they were of the couple. Everything was perfect. Or at least, it seemed that way on the outside. But inside, Jenna felt trapped. She knew that if she went through with this, if she said, I do, she would be making a decision that would define the rest of her life. The thought terrified her. As Jenna stood in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection in the bridal gown, she saw someone she didn't fully recognize. The woman in the mirror seemed distant, almost like a stranger. She was dressed in the perfect gown, her hair styled just the way she had always dreamed, but there was no excitement in her eyes, no joy, just a deep sense of uncertainty. Her phone buzzed, and Jenna glanced down. It was another message from Jake. If you're having second thoughts, meet me at the old barn outside of town. I'll be waiting. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest as she read the message. She knew what he was offering: an escape, a chance to run away from the wedding, from everything she thought she knew. But she also knew the consequences. If she left, there would be no going back. Her family, Ethan, they would never understand. She would be making a choice that would change everything. But the question in her mind was simple. Was this the life she really wanted? Torn between the life she had built with Ethan and the unknown possibilities with Jake, Jenna didn't know what to do. She loved Ethan, but her heart was telling her something different. She had promised to marry him, to start a life together. But what if she was making a mistake? What if she was settling for a life that wasn't truly hers? Jenna stood there for a long time, staring at her phone, weighing the options. She had dreamed of her wedding day for years, but never once had she imagined this kind of uncertainty. In that moment, she realized that this wasn't just about her wedding, it was about her life, her happiness, and the choices she had to make for herself. The minutes passed, and she felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Should she stay, go through with the wedding, and accept the life that was already mapped out for her? Or should she take a risk, follow her heart, and meet Jake at the barn? The time was ticking, and Jenna had no idea what her answer would be. But one thing was certain: her life, her future, and her heart were at a crossroads. The decision Jenna had to make felt like it was hanging over her head like a heavy cloud. Her wedding day had come and gone, and she had followed through with everything she had said, "I do." She had smiled for the cameras, and she had gone through the motions, as expected, but inside, she was a storm of emotions, torn between what she had promised and the feelings she couldn't ignore. After the ceremony, the reception was a blur. Everyone around her was celebrating, dancing, laughing, but Jenna felt like she was in a completely different world. It was like she was watching from the outside, observing everything happening as if it was part of a movie. Ethan, so excited and so in love, didn't notice how distant she had become. To him, this was the beginning of the rest of their lives together, the perfect life. He couldn't see the storm swirling inside her, but Jenna couldn't stop the thoughts racing through her mind. She had made a choice. She had walked down the aisle, pledged her life to Ethan, and had started the life that everyone around her expected her to live. Yet, despite the vows she had taken, the promise she had made, Jenna felt the gnawing feeling that she had done the wrong thing. It wasn't that she didn't care for Ethan, she did. Deeply. He was a good man, someone who would make her safe and secure, but she couldn't ignore the truth that had settled in her heart. That truth was that, no matter how much she cared for Ethan, there was someone else, someone who had awakened something inside her that she had long forgotten. Jake. Her thoughts returned to the message he had sent before the wedding. "I'll be here if you need me." It was a simple message, but it had stayed with her, haunting her at every moment. Even after the wedding, in the midst of all the excitement, the words replayed in her mind over and over. She couldn't shake the feeling that Jake had known something about her life that no one else did. He had made her feel alive again. He had made her feel like she was more than just someone's wife-to-be or a part of a well-organized plan. He had made her feel like herself, something she hadn't felt in a long time. As the night wore on, Jenna grew more and more restless. She excused herself from the reception, claiming she needed a break from all the noise and people. She stepped out into the cool evening air, hoping it would clear her mind. The night was quiet, the stars shining bright overhead, and for a moment, Jenna felt at peace. But even in the silence, her mind wouldn't stop. It kept coming back to Jake and the way he had looked at her. The way he had made her feel when they had talked in the diner. It was a connection she couldn't ignore. Jenna stood outside, leaning against the railing of the porch, trying to breathe deeply and calm her racing thoughts. Was she making a mistake? She had promised Ethan a future together, and yet, her heart was telling her that she was meant for something else. The love she felt for Ethan was safe, but it didn't set her soul on fire like the moments with Jake had. Could she truly walk away from everything she had worked for, everything she had built, for something unknown? Could she risk her reputation, her family's approval, and her entire future for a chance at something real? Her phone buzzed again. She checked it, almost afraid to look, but it was Jake once more. "I'm thinking of you." The text read, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I hope you'll figure out what you really want." Jenna's heart skipped a beat. There it was again, his words, simple but sincere, making her question everything. In that moment, she realized how much she was holding onto a life that wasn't truly hers. She had spent so much time trying to fit into the role of the perfect fiancée, the perfect bride, that she had forgotten about her own happiness, her own desires. Jake wasn't asking her to make any promises. He wasn't pressuring her. He was just offering her a chance at something real, something raw, something honest. Jenna stood there, her mind spinning. She wanted to be honest with herself, but she didn't know where to begin. Was it possible to love Ethan and still have feelings for someone else? Could she really walk away from the life she had always known? The man who had always been there for her? To follow her heart into the unknown? Her thoughts were a whirlwind of uncertainty. Suddenly, She heard footsteps approaching from behind. She turned around quickly, her heart racing. It was Ethan. He had come to find her, no doubt worried about where she had disappeared to. He walked up the stairs of the porch, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Jenna, are you okay?" Ethan asked gently, his voice filled with concern. "You've been acting strange tonight. I've been looking all over for you." Jenna's heart tightened. She knew Ethan was a good man, someone who loved her completely. He was there for her, always. But in that moment, she couldn't escape the feeling that something had shifted between them. She had promised him forever, but could she truly keep that promise when her heart was in turmoil? I'm just thinking," Jenna replied softly. She didn't know how to explain the storm inside her without breaking his heart. How could she tell him that a part of her was still thinking about another man, that she was struggling to reconcile the life she had promised with the one her heart wanted? Ethan looked at her, his eyes searching her face. "You know, we've been through a lot together, Jenna. I know this whole wedding thing has been a whirlwind, but I just want you to know that I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm not going anywhere." Jenna looked at him, his sincere words cutting through the noise in her mind. He was right. Ethan had been there for her through everything, supporting her when things were tough. He wanted to be there for her now, in this moment of uncertainty. But how could she stay when her heart was telling her something else? How could she go back to the life she had, knowing that a part of her yearned for something different? "I know, Ethan," Jenna whispered, her voice barely audible. "I just don't know what I want anymore." Ethan took her hand, his touch warm and comforting. "You don't have to know everything right now. We'll figure it out together." But Jenna wasn't sure she wanted to figure it out with him. She wasn't sure she could keep pretending everything was fine when inside, she felt like she was breaking apart. The truth was, she didn't know what the future held. She didn't know whether staying with Ethan was the right choice, but she did know that the connection she had with Jake was something she couldn't ignore. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, pulling her back to the present. "Let's go back inside. Everyone is waiting for us. We're in this together, remember?" Jenna nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of her emotions. As she followed Ethan back into the reception, she couldn't help but feel like she was at a crossroads. Whatever happened next, she knew that the choice she made would change everything: her marriage, her happiness, and the future she had always imagined for herself. The days after the wedding passed slowly for Jenna. She had returned to her new life with Ethan, but everything felt different. She couldn't deny the sense of unease that settled in her chest every time she looked at him. Ethan was doing his best to make everything feel like normal, and he was, in his own way, trying to show Jenna that he was there for her, no matter what. But no matter how hard he tried, Jenna knew she couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. Her life with Ethan was stable, predictable, and safe. He was the man she had chosen, the man who had always been there for her. They had built a life together, a future that was certain and secure. He was kind, loving, and thoughtful, and he did everything right. Yet, for all of his qualities, Jenna couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was living a life that wasn't truly her own. The spark she had once hoped for wasn't there, and no amount of love or attention from Ethan seemed to fill the empty space she felt inside. Every time Jenna tried to shake off the feeling, the thought of Jake returned. She couldn't stop thinking about him, his rugged appearance, his confident yet gentle manner, and the way he had looked at her in the diner, as if she were the only person in the room. It wasn't just a physical attraction. There was something deeper, something emotional. With Jake, Jenna felt like she was truly seen, not just as a woman or a fiancé, but as herself. He made her feel alive in a way she hadn't experienced in years, and that feeling was something she couldn't easily forget. The more she thought about Jake, the more Jenna realized that the connection between them hadn't been a fleeting moment. It had been something real. Something that had awakened a part of her that had been dormant for so long. the part of her that longed for passion, excitement, and adventure. With Ethan, there was comfort and warmth, but there was no fire, no spark, and it wasn't fair to either of them to keep pretending otherwise. Jenna found herself withdrawing further from Ethan. She spent more time lost in her thoughts, unable to shake the guilt she felt for not being fully present in her marriage. She loved him, but she couldn't ignore the growing sense of dissatisfaction. It wasn't that Ethan had done anything wrong, it was that Jenna was realizing she wasn't the person she thought she was. She had spent so much time trying to meet everyone's expectations, including her own, that she had forgotten what it meant to truly follow her heart. One afternoon, as Jenna sat in the living room, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Jake. Her heart raced as she opened it. "I'm still thinking about you, Jenna. I hope you're okay. I miss talking to you." Reading his words made her stomach flip. The emotions she had been trying to suppress for weeks came rushing back. She knew, deep down, that she had to stop hiding from her feelings. The constant back and forth in her mind, the confusion, the guilt, it had to end. She had to face the truth. Jenna didn't reply to Jake immediately. She knew what she needed to do, but she wasn't ready to take that step just yet. Her marriage to Ethan was still fresh, and leaving him would be a huge decision, one that would affect both of their lives. But how could she continue to live a lie? How could she keep pretending to be someone she wasn't, all for the sake of a life that didn't truly feel like hers? She spent the next few days trying to distract herself. She went to work, spent time with Ethan, and took care of small tasks around the house. But it was all so mechanical, as if she was going through the motions without really living. She couldn't shake the feeling that her true self was slipping further and further away from the life she had created. As the days passed, Ethan began to notice the change in her. He noticed the distance, the way she seemed lost in thought, more often than not. He noticed how she had stopped laughing at his jokes, or engaging in the little things they used to do together. Ethan, being the caring person he was, didn't want to pressure her. He thought that maybe Jenna was just overwhelmed by the wedding and the adjustment to married life. But as time went on, the distance between them only seemed to grow. One evening, after a quiet dinner together, Ethan looked at Jenna with concern in his eyes. "Jenna, what's going on?" he asked softly. "You've been different lately. I know this whole thing has been a lot, but I just want to make sure you're okay." Jenna's heart ached at the look on his face. She could see how much he cared, how much he was trying to make things work, but she knew she wasn't being honest with him. She didn't know what to say. How could she explain that she was torn between two worlds? That a part of her wanted to make this marriage work, but another part of her longed for something more, something that was out of her control. "I don't know," Jenna whispered, looking down at her hands. I feel like I'm losing myself. Like I'm not who I thought I was. I don't know if I'm ready for this. All of this." And Ethan didn't say anything right away. He simply looked at her, his brow furrowing with concern. He had no idea what was going on in her mind. He only knew that the woman he had married wasn't the same woman sitting across from him now. There was a sadness in her eyes that he couldn't ignore, and it was clear that something was wrong. "I don't want to lose you," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "I know I'm not perfect, but I love you, Jenna. And I want us to figure this out together. If you're struggling, I want to help, but I can't help if you don't tell me what's going on." Jenna felt a lump form in her throat. She loved him, she truly did. But in that moment, she realized that love alone wasn't enough. There was something more that she needed, something she wasn't getting from Ethan, no matter how hard he tried. The love she felt for him was comfortable, safe, and kind. But it wasn't the kind of love that set her heart on fire. It wasn't the love that made her feel alive. "I'm sorry, Ethan," Jenna whispered. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can." Ethan's face fell, and Jenna could see the hurt in his eyes. He didn't understand what was happening. but he could feel the shift between them. He could see that Jenna wasn't the same person she had been before. And it broke his heart to know that there was nothing he could do to change it. "I'll give you space, Jenna," he said quietly, standing up from the table. I just want you to be happy. If that means you need to figure things out, then I'll give you the time to do that." Jenna watched him walk away, feeling the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She didn't want to hurt Ethan, but the truth was, she didn't know how to fix what was broken inside her. She didn't know if she could keep living this way, torn between the life she had with Ethan and the life she longed for with Jake. And deep down, she knew that the only way to figure things out was to be honest with herself. As the days went by, Jenna knew that she couldn't keep putting off the inevitable. She had to face the reality of her situation, no matter how painful it was. And as much as she didn't want to hurt Ethan, she knew that the longer she stayed in this marriage, the harder it would be to find the clarity she needed. The days following Jenna's conversation with Ethan felt like they moved in slow motion. Every part of her life seemed to be in a state of limbo. She had never imagined that being married would feel this way, full of uncertainty, with an overwhelming sense of confusion clouding her every decision. Jenna had always been someone who thrived on knowing what her next step would be. She had a plan, a clear path for her life. But now, everything felt up in the air, as if the ground beneath her was shifting. Ethan had given her the space she asked for, though it hurt him deeply. He went about his daily routines, but there was an unspoken sadness in his eyes that Jenna couldn't ignore. She saw him trying to reach out, trying to connect with her, but the distance between them had only grown wider. Jenna couldn't bring herself to pretend anymore. The longer she stayed in the marriage, the more it felt like she was lying to him and to herself. The weight of the secret she carried about her feelings for Jake was slowly crushing her. Jake, on the other hand, seemed to be a constant in her thoughts. Every time she tried to focus on something else, his face appeared in her mind. The way he looked at her with such intensity. The way he spoke to her like she was the most important person in the world. It was unlike anything she had ever felt with Ethan. With Jake, it wasn't just about the excitement, it was about feeling truly alive. It was the kind of feeling Jenna had been chasing for years, but never knew she was missing until she met him. Despite the tension with Ethan, Jenna couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm whenever she thought of Jake. He had been patient, never pushing her, but always there, in the background, waiting for her to figure things out. His messages had stopped for a while after the wedding, but that didn't mean he had forgotten about her. He had given her space, understanding that the decision she had to make wasn't an easy one. Still, he had made it clear that he was there for her whenever she was ready to choose. One evening, after another quiet day spent at home, Jenna found herself staring out the window at the stars, lost in thought. Her heart was heavy with indecision. She knew that she couldn't continue living like this, caught between two worlds. The life she had with Ethan was safe and secure, but it wasn't where her heart truly felt alive. The life she imagined with Jake was full of uncertainty, full of passion and excitement, but also risk. If she left Ethan, everything would change. There was no going back. But what would her life be like if she stayed? Could she continue to ignore the part of her that longed for more? Jenna's phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. She hesitated before checking it, unsure if she was ready to hear from Jake again. But she couldn't stop herself. She unlocked her phone and saw a new message from him. "I've been thinking about you a lot. I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. I just want you to be happy." The words were simple, but they hit her with such force. The clarity she had been waiting for began to wash over her. She knew what she had to do. She needed to stop running from the truth. It wasn't just about the love she felt for Jake. It was about the fact that she had been living her life in a way that didn't truly reflect who she was. She had been so focused on meeting expectations, her parents', society's, and even her own, that she had forgotten what it meant to truly follow her heart. She had let fear guide her decisions, and now, it was time to face that fear. Jenna put down her phone, her decision feeling like a weight had been lifted from her chest. She knew what she needed to do. The first thing was to talk to Ethan. To tell him the truth about where she was. She didn't want to hurt him, but she couldn't keep living a lie. Jenna had spent so much time trying to make things work with Ethan, and now it was time to be honest with herself and with him. That evening, as Ethan came home from work, Jenna asked him to sit down. She could see the concern in his eyes, but she also saw the hope. He was still holding on to the belief that they could work things out, that whatever was wrong could be fixed. But Jenna knew that wasn't the case. She had spent so many days trying to convince herself that everything would be okay. But the truth was that the more she denied her own feelings, the more she hurt both of them. "I need to talk to you, Ethan," she began, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan sat down across from her, his face filled with worry. "Of course. What's going on, Jenna? You've seemed so distant lately, and I just want to understand. We can get through this. We always have." Jenna took a deep breath, the weight of her words pressing on her chest. She had no idea how to start, but she knew it had to come out. "I love you, Ethan. I really do. But something is wrong. I've been struggling with these feelings, and I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. I've been thinking about everything about our life together, about what I want, and I realized that I haven't been honest with myself. And I haven't been honest with you." Ethan's face tightened with concern, but he didn't interrupt her. Jenna continued, her voice softer now. "I've been feeling like I'm not truly living my life. I've been going through the motions, trying to meet expectations, but I'm not happy. Not the way I should be. And I've been thinking about someone else." There was a long pause. Ethan's face fell, and Jenna could see the hurt in his eyes. But she couldn't stop now. She needed him to know the truth. "I met someone, Ethan," she said, her heart pounding. "And I care about him. More than I should. And that's why I'm telling you this. Because you deserve the truth. I can't keep pretending that I'm happy when I'm not. And I can't keep holding on to something that isn't right for me." Ethan didn't speak right away. His hands were clenched in his lap, and his eyes were filled with a mix of sadness and disbelief. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet. "So, that's it? You're choosing him over me?" Jenna felt her heart break at the pain in his voice, but she nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I never wanted to hurt you. You're a good man. And you deserve someone who can love you the way you deserve. But I can't be that person right now. Not when I'm still figuring out what I truly want." Ethan stood up, his face pale, and walked to the window, looking out at the night. He was silent for a long time. Jenna could see how much this was hurting him, but she couldn't take it back. She had made her decision, and though it was painful, she knew it was the only way forward. Finally, he turned around, his expression somber. "I don't know what to say, Jenna. I thought we were building a life together. I thought we had everything." "We did," Jenna whispered. "But I need to find myself first. And I can't do that while I'm holding on to something that isn't true to me." There was a long silence, and then Ethan spoke again, his voice broken but calm. And with that, he left, closing the door softly behind him. Jenna sat in the silence, her heart heavy, but finally at peace with her decision. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to walk it, to finally live her truth.